Hi, I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Andy. Welcome to E-commerce Marketing with the Pitbulls, the show where we cut through the noise and simplify digital marketing for authentic brands looking to find more customer relationships and more sales online.
And today we are discussing a common scenario that we run into. We were speaking with a client earlier this week, and they brought forth a story we've heard many a time. So we thought today we would finally address it. So the scenario that they brought to us was that they were speaking with other agencies, and one of them pitched spending $6,000 a month for 6 months before expecting to see results in something like Facebook ads. So why wouldn't that be great, Andy? That seems pretty reasonable to me, right?
Yeah, so the idea here, the kind of underpinning is brand awareness ads, right? So it's this idea that somebody's going to be running some ads for your brand, and it's a small brand, you're getting started, so you need to run these ads, and you may not get purchases out of them, but in the magic ether, people are hearing your name and getting to know your brand a little bit, so purchases will follow, but you may not necessarily see them for something like 6 months in this case. So of course, as soon as I hear that, I cringe a little bit. That's I want to say that brand awareness ads, especially for very small brands, should be kind of a dirty word, especially when working with an agency. You want to make sure that you're able to measure results. So anything that you do should be measurable. And I think a big part of that is making sure that you're getting purchases out of your spend. So if you're putting in, especially if you're spending something like $6,000 over the course of multiple months, you've got to be able to say, okay, well, where's that going? Where are my results? What am I getting out of this? So for that reason, I would definitely say push back anytime somebody says, hey, we're going to run some ads and you'll get some better brand awareness out of it.
Yeah, and I think in general, when we hear marketing talk out on YouTube and podcasts and just on social media, LinkedIn, everywhere, a lot of people are talking about strategies that they employ with much bigger budgets, with much bigger businesses that have better solutions, and they're able to take bigger hits than you are as a small business. So I think it's fair to keep that in mind and not feel like every solution that's thrown out there by a guru is absolutely something that you have to apply to a smaller business. And honestly, it's usually the measurable stuff that's going to get you feeling more confident and more able in your marketing shoes to make more of a profit. So if you can't measure it, is kind of the point that we're making today, it's probably not going to be the best option for you as a smaller business.
Definitely. And it's important to remember. So we talk a lot about Google Analytics, where you're measuring people hitting your site and purchases and all different things there. And it's a free solution. There's some more paid solutions, and beyond that, some kind of deeper measurement strategies, whether it be layering over customer surveys, all these different types of things. But it's important to remember that these larger businesses may be running some of those things. So even on the measurable side, you brought up a great point that, hey, these bigger businesses have the ability to put a little bit more money against it and run with much bigger budgets, which is probably more effective in the brand awareness arena. But they can also measure it a little bit better. So where you might just be throwing some money at these ads and guessing like, hey, I hope I got a little bit better brand awareness, or I hope people kind of recognize me a little bit better. They're actually able to run customer surveys and a number of different strategies that really, would be too high of an investment for you to do at a smaller level. It would probably, cost you more than the ad spend itself did. And then on top of that, it's really a volume driven thing. So you just wouldn't have enough data coming in. So it's important to remember that when you hear some of these things, when you hear a lot of these strategies out there, it's operating on a much bigger business, bigger budgets, and better ability to actually measure outcomes, which you may not have access to as a smaller business.
Yeah, and that certainly doesn't mean that you can't still compete. I think we talked with Chelsea Ford about this in one of our previous interviews, that there are so many different ways for you to kind of cut under the big guys and really shine through as a smaller brand. So definitely check out that interview if you're curious about those tips that we covered there. But what can we do, Andy, then if brand awareness ads are not going to be great and in our favor, then what can a smaller business do?
So definitely, I love direct response ads. So we want to make sure that, hey, we're going to go ahead and run the ad, and then we're going to see the direct outcome from it. Hopefully that's a purchase. Hopefully, we're measuring in ROAS. We're getting, $10 in revenue for every $5 in ad spend. Would be a 2 to 1 or 2x ROAS. So that's kind of the typical area we want to be, right? Making sure that we're running these ads and getting back purchases. So the kind of stop pointer, or I'm already hearing the bells go off and people say, well, but what if nobody knows about my product, or hey, great, you told me you would run on ROAS and maybe we'll put a little bit of money against it and get a 2 or a 3x ROAS, but I can't scale up. How do I actually find more customers out there, get more people to know my brand if you're telling me that brand awareness ads don't work? So there's a number of different strategies there, but Lindsay, why don't you kick us off with that?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I think one that may seem like the most obvious is hit the pavement, go to farmers markets, in-store samples, friends and family, free product, ask for reviews. So one thing I like to think of is actually build this into your marketing budget. It was kind of a tip that I learned a long time ago. When you're selling physical products, actually carve out an amount of money that you're willing to give away in free product, and then section that over the year. Maybe if you're a candy brand, doing more on Valentine's Day makes sense, but really kind of being intentional with the free product. So you have X amount and you can give it to this influencer or this opportunity that may come up. Maybe you have the opportunity to do one of those early morning news shows. Don't forget about those. You can definitely get some good return on those, even though you have to wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning to go do it. It's usually pretty fun and worth it, but you can give away free product and services that way. So hit the pavement, do it in person, get reviews, social proof, get people recording on their phone, on social media, their experiences with your product, and just get out there as much as possible. And you'll start to get just tons of gold that you'll be able to keep for when you do run ads in the future.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it's kind of funny that we say, hey, that's probably the most basic thing. Like that's the old school way, right? Is free samples, handing things out. And you might not expect that coming from the e-commerce marketing podcast, but I mean, ultimately that's the big thing, right? If you're trying to get started and you don't have any sales coming in through your website, you need to juice that a little bit with something. You can't just go ahead and, flip on Google ads or flip on Facebook ads and all of a sudden, bam, crazy profit. So I think it makes a lot of sense, even if it's going to be, hey, I'm going to hand out a coupon or a coupon code and get some of these other people in my life to come through the website and make the purchase there on the website. That's always great because you're collecting emails as well. But yeah, I think it's just so important to, really nurture those in-person relationships, or don't forget those in-person relationships. One, because you're going to, it's probably the easiest way to get your first couple sales or to really start growing the brand in that way. And two, you're going to learn a ton. You probably will change some of your brand value proposition and kind of, put yourself in a better position when you really are ready to start scaling online.
I think, and not to keep, harkening back to old interviews, but I think about Parker from Forage when we talked to him and how he was able to really hone their copy and get better ideas on messaging because he was talking to people in person and in real time, getting that feedback from his product. So it's not just about getting your product out there. You're going to get a ton back just by being present with people in person and getting their feedback.
Yeah, I think that's the real brand awareness there. That's great.
Yeah.
Another thing you can do when you are looking at the kind of online side of the house is running direct response ads or running ads where you're measuring results, but thinking of something a little bit different, right? So yeah, typically you'd want to turn on your ads and get a, for your margins, maybe you want to get a 3x or a 4x ROAS. It's going to help you to cover your margins. And that's a fair advertising, price to pay for those purchases. So something you can think about is, okay, well, rather than just say, hey, if I can't get that 4x ROAS, I'm just going to throw that idea out and go to brand awareness ads. Instead, why don't you just think about maybe a little bit lower ROAS? So can we get to a 2x ROAS or even a break even? Can we put up $1 in ad spend and break even? Obviously, that's not the way to long-term profit. If you're putting in $1 in ad spend to get $1 in revenue, that's not a sustainable model in the long run. But if you're going to be putting money against, brand awareness anyway, that could be a great way to get started and get your first couple purchases through. Make sure you're getting data, both customer data on your side, emails, people that you can reach out to for reviews, all of that type of stuff, as well as data that you can feed back into, whether it be Google or Facebook, to then later on ramp up and do a little bit better, be a little bit more profitable. The other fun thing that we like to do with that sometimes is include the actual conversion action for collecting an email. So if you have something on your site like, hey, get 10% off your first purchase, get 15% off your first purchase, let's go ahead and record that as a conversion when somebody signs up and gives you their email. And it's a lot easier to get those than it is to get full up purchases. So again, that's, a kind of a direct response technique. You are, running ads and figuring out exactly what the customer behavior is on the back end once they hit your site. And it's measurable. You can see improvement over time. But at the same time, it's not necessarily, shooting for the stars and getting, the most profitable thing right out of the gate. So I like that kind of middle ground where if you're, before you go and say, hey, we're just going to go ahead and go with brand awareness, we're going to run a bunch of ads and hope for the best. Try that middle ground first, where let's make sure we're at least getting something back, even if we're just covering our costs.
Yeah, I love that. And anytime that you can collect emails, and Google's very helpful at doing that, the more you're able to interact with your customers, test out products and promos, and just get that really important first party data that we're talking so much about these days. It's really important to rely on actually your customers and their information that they give you, as opposed to third party platforms who could be here today, gone tomorrow. We never really know. So I think that's a really great point. The last thing that we were going to talk about doing instead of running brand awareness is just really focusing in on organic and social. So really honing in on your brand on each platform, honing your strategy. So when you're posting, is everything optimized for that particular platform? Do you have people responding to comments and questions? Are you checking your inboxes for those things? Are you doing fun, interesting, unique kind of content that makes people want to interact with your brand? All of that's incredibly important. And while it is time consuming and you could hire it out at a certain cost, and it also is pretty difficult to measure, that's the exact kind of brand awareness that you should be doing. That's ground level. You would basically be doing that in person at the farmer's market. It's just going to be on social media platforms, so interacting with people there. But you're going to get direct response from direct customers right in front of you. Yes, that's a product I'm interested in, or no, it's not. Or yes, I really like what you're doing with these videos, or no, I don't. You'll hear the tumbleweed go by in the comment sections, and you'll be able to see, okay, well, maybe this isn't working. I should try something different. Or maybe you'll accidentally go viral and your product will get featured by an influencer or something. So it's sort of a wild west out there still, but you'll get amazing responses from people that are practically invaluable and will inform your direction where you go next. So definitely, if you're not doing it already, put more effort into organic social.
And that's something I hear from agencies sometimes that come in, when they're pitching brand awareness ads saying, hey, in this day and age, you can no longer get any reach with your organic stuff on Facebook, Instagram. You're going to be putting it out there and it's not going to go anywhere unless you're paying to boost those and paying to, really start to spread your ads wider, which may be true to a degree. That's definitely a little bit more competitive than it used to be. But I think there's still something to be said there for putting in the work and testing things out. And even if it's, hey, this post got, a reach went from 30 views up to 60 views, like neither of those are really going to move the needle for your business, but that's where you're going to learn a little bit more about your brand messaging and kind of what you need to be doing in terms of getting a little bit more engagement and growing. And over time, it's the type of thing there. I think that's the area where you can put in the work and kind of wait and see and try different things out and really play the long game and say, hey, it might take 6 months to really build something up. But at least you're not spending any money against it. I think the big problem with brand awareness ads is where you're saying, hey, let's go ahead and put $6,000 a month or some other amount against these ads, not knowing if it's going to work or not, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to spend an hour a day putting up a new post and then responding to any comments I get on Instagram, something like that.
Yeah, and I think something that people overlook when it comes to organic social is your ability to build really strong, loyal community from your customers. So if you have product evangelists who really love your product and they're sharing it on social, being able to support that with engagement, but also maybe sending them free product or encouraging these customers to continue talking about you or recommending you in groups. Facebook groups are huge and people are constantly asking each other, what do you do for this problem? What do you buy when you go out and do this? And people are constantly giving recommendations. Being able to just slip in and encourage a purchase here or there could do wonders for your product and business. So, don't overlook it. That hour a day could really be spent building product evangelists who will then continue to do that work for you practically for free.
Definitely. And it's a lot cheaper than spending just a ton of money on ads that may or may not be going anywhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's our show for today. So we talked a lot about brand awareness ads specifically, and why when an agency comes to you and says, hey, here's the ad spend, we're going to spend, $6,000 over the next 6 months, and we'll see if we start to get some results, but don't expect results over the first 6 months. That's really a bad place to be. I think, especially for small brands, brand awareness should be kind of a little bit of a dirty word, or brand awareness ad should be a little bit of a dirty word. So definitely focus in on direct response advertising, making sure that you're actually seeing some results, even if that's not as profitable as you'd like it to be, but some results that you can then improve on and put down a baseline and start to grow from. And finally, you're going to do really well with in person, building relationships, go to farmers markets, give free samples, or even online if it's in the organic space, posting, making connections with people, trying to get featured on podcasts, any of those types of things can all be good ways to get that initial brand awareness without having to spend money on an ad channel that may or may not ultimately pay off for you.
Yeah, great points. And if you liked what you heard today, please subscribe, get tips and tricks for e-commerce marketing with the Pitbulls, and check out our digital marketing assessment. If you're not sure where you're at in your journey and you still have questions on where to go next, go to ppcpitbulls.com/assessment, take the free assessment there, and you can reach out to us with any questions, or you can head on down the roadmap that it gives you and continue on with your marketing journey. We just really appreciate y'all checking it out, and we will see you next time.